So this video is an introduction to epistemology and essentially a theory of epistemology called base epistemology. Now, base epistemology epistemology, first of all, should be understood. Epistemology is the study of knowledge and the structures of knowledge. So this is like saying you have a house and there's a foundation to the house and there's a blueprint to the house. Well, the foundation and the house itself is on a blueprint. That blueprint is the structure through which you build the house. So, first of all, in the primary sense, what that means is that the structure of knowledge is going to exist before you have knowledge and is going to exist so that you have knowledge. So without that structure, you can't have knowledge. Now, the most common epistemological theories is coherence theory, correspondence theory, and founderance theory. The best way to understand the three is that founderance is like saying there is some sort of founded, it's very close to base epistemology in a way. It's like saying there are founderance or founded statements or knowledge statements that can be known that are the very foundation of all other knowledge relative to it. That's not saying the same thing as base epistemology because I haven't explained that yet, but I think you can get the understanding the word base meaning, the very necessary, stringent knowledge that's necessary for all other knowledge to exist. And it's so stringent to the point that what I'm saying in base epistemology is that you have to know, based upon a short list of knowledge, you have to know parts of that to have knowledge. Otherwise, you don't have knowledge. It's not even possible. For example, now, founderance theory isn't saying that. Founderance theory is just saying that the relativity of the knowledge exists in a way that apple is founded based upon the color red and it being a red apple. Now, in some ways, the founderance theory is weakened by that because they say, well, are you still talking about the apple or are we talking about the color red? Base knowledge, the reason why I've also mentioned founderance first because it's closest to base, and base knowledge can actually work together with all these theories, and more importantly with founderance theory to prove that, well, red is still talking about the apple because red is base, red is necessary. The word apple or the fruit apple is going to come secondary. Secondary and primary, what I'm keep saying that for, is because primary knowledge is like this, a list. Okay, there's 10 or 11, or rather there's 11. And that doesn't mean 11, that just means there's 11 categories. Because the 11th, I haven't explained that yet, the 11th is the singular number, the unknown number. Now, what this means is that the color red in founderance theory takes it away, weakens the argument. But if you include base epistemology, which I've created, incorporate it into founderance theory, you are still talking about the apple. Because the apple comes secondary to the primary base list. The base list is primary. All other knowledge is secondary, thrice, and so on. Secondary means the word apple, or rather the apple itself, the fruit, is going to be secondary. Parts of the whole, for example, number is base. In fact, it's the first, it's the least of knowledge, okay? One apple is knowably one apple among many apples, but still one apple. That's base. Apple itself is secondary. Apple is a fruit. So one fruit, apple, thrice. It's a specific category of the fruit. We're also talking about categories. Categories is very important to understand in knowledge because categories help us succinct all the knowledge together. So an example of a primary, secondary, thrice is the apple. Again, primary is base, one apple. Fruit comes second. All fruits, the categories, the family of fruit. Then apple itself. And you get one fruit apple. And that is the base knowledge. That's base epistemology for you. Now, how is that founderance? That's also founderance because all of that is founded upon this notion that there is one fruit apple. One fruit apple is the foundation of all, now we're working backwards, all apples, one. All apples can be one, therefore all apples and all fruits can be one as well. This is all relative to one. The foundation is then, or the founderance is one fruit apple together in a statement. Now, coherence works a bit loosely, but requires a stringent coherence, meaning the knowledge must be sound. It must make logical sense. When you make the statement, it must logically make sense. What that means, for example, again, we'll stick with the same example so you get varying degrees of the same statement. Coherence in the apple is that, does one fruit apple cohere? Well, yes. Now, does one apple fruit cohere? No. Because categorically, you have to maximize and minimize at the same time. It's a double negation. You have to maximize and minimize at the same time, therefore double negation. Why I'm saying that twice is just to really hammer home what I'm trying to say, so you can understand what I'm saying is that categorically, apple is less value, axiological value, or anaxiological rather. Anaxiological value, the value of the word meaning, is less than fruit. Fruit is categorically higher. There's more types of fruits than there are types of, not types of apples, but more types of fruits. There's more to the categorical in terms of differentiation and individuality. There is a pear. These are different types of fruits, and categorically that comes under the word fruit. And the word fruit categorically is based upon, for example, number, and actually, when you have something based, it's going almost like a checklist. It's going to give you at the very least 11 things in each category of the list. That's doing base epistemology. So you're going to have number, you're going to have color, you're going to have red, you're going to have sound. Sound sounds strange, but there is a sound to an apple. If you were to do this in like a independent environment and we were trying to hear the sound of an apple, you might think it's silent, but it's not silent, because sound is going to be created among the collision of things. Sound is often created through collision. So dropping the apple will create a sound, and that's the apple sound. What do I do to get the apple sound specifically? I've got to keep working examples until I find one sound that would be the apple sound. I'm not going to do that now, but that's just an example how you figure out which sound in particular is relative to the apple. We've done number, we've done color, shape. Generally, there's multiple shapes to something, but if you contour the shape, if you were to take a light, beam the light to the apple, and then onto a wall, you get a shadow. That shadow is the contour. The contour is going to help you understand the shape. Beliefs or rules. There is always a rule. It sounds strange. It's like saying is it Jewish or Christian or Muslim or Hindu. There's always a belief system behind something. There's always, now I'm actually going through the list, but I'm doing this to help understand coherence. Because and I will work my way back to coherence in a second, because coherence is one of these things. It's like saying it just has to be logically in the right order. Does that make sense valuably? Okay, so that's coherence. Let's just skip over that quickly, and now I'll work my way back to base epistemology and the apple. We're using the same example. There's always a rule or belief. Do as thou wilt. Do as thou command. Do the 10 commandments, for example. The 10 commandments adding do as thou wilt, do as thou will. So there's will. These 11 commandments is an example in Christianity of rules. Each belief system has commandments. If it doesn't have commandments, it's an illegitimate system. It's not a proper belief system if it doesn't have rules. That's what makes beliefs. That's what makes rules. Following that, ritualism. Ritualism is always involved. It's like just saying moving. Moving is simply ritualism. Now, I'm not saying movement is ritualism. I'm just saying moving in general is ritualism. So how I light a candle and pray is generally how you think of ritualism. But essence, for example, is ritualism. And in essence, you're doing some sort of essence thing where, when in the apple example, the essence of the apple is perhaps the least of the thing. So it could be a specific type of apple. Let's say the pink apples there. I forget what that's called, but the pink apples or pink apple is specific type of apple that or sour apple, the green apple, are apples that are categorically ritualized in essence. Some sort of essence is going on there. There are 11 types of ritualisms, and that's the first list. And then, of course, you can go off into infinity. But what's most base and what's most important, maximize, minimize at the same time, that's what you put first in the first 10 or first 11. Next comes sensation. Sensation, there's always sensation about something. Touch, hear, sound. Now, typically, you know 5. There are 11 at the very least, often to infinity. That is simply logic. Of course, there are much more sensations than the 5. And I'm not talking about sensations that are extraterrestrial, if you'd like. They're talking about sensations that are logical. For example, the power to clairvoyant. Clairvoyant a voyant can come in the form of an image. You have visualizations. You know you have visualizations. But your visualizations don't appear to be a part of your regular sight. This appears to be a part of some sort of other way of seeing. Okay, so is that saying that visualization is seeing? No, it's saying visualization is some sort of sight, not necessarily seen, and that sight is something different. Okay, so categorically, visualization or clairvoyant is its own sensation, and it's real. And the same for dreaming, the same for telepathy, telemetry, empathy, etc. Those are sensations. Parts. For example, parts is very interesting. There are 11. This includes shadow, self, soul. If you've probably heard some of these. Spirit, spire, focus, body, physical, aura, cranium, mental, meta. Those are the parts of your being. This whole parts of your being, and you have proof physically if you want to. If you have doubt, there are physical proofs of all these parts of your being. The heart is shadow, this is that, etc. And it can prove physically if you want. The least of a doubting argument is the one that can live in the doubt and prove that the doubt is wrong in the doubt. And the physicalist, atheist arguments, and I don't mean no God, I just mean atheism in general, just this whole notion of we are monkeys, live and die, and that's the end of it. All of that comes into play here. This is what base epistemology is doing. It's a lot of work put into one. Now, parts comes 8th. Then we're at 8. Now 9, organization. Organization is always necessary. Even if you were just one person existing in the whole of existence, you would organize yourself in a manner. Organization can be things such as the Illuminati or Pursuit or Lestrate or alliance, company, corporation, syndicate, words like that, agency. Those are organizations and ways of organizing. You will always find in something that is knowledge-based, there is a way of organizing it. The 10th, order. Now, order is simply saying knowing. That's actually what we're doing here, epistemology. Epistemology is the practitioner of the study of knowledge and the structures of knowledge, and order happens to be that. And epistemology as a practitioner is the 10th order. Above epistemology is ideology, because ideology orients your knowledge. That's a bit more off topic, but philosophy comes under epistemology, ideology, epistemology, philosophy, socio, economics, and so on. The practitioners are in a hierarchy, straight to the more scientific, from philosophical to scientific, even to the athletic. And this all combines to make 11 parts of the whole, which makes order or knowing. Order is now what I'm saying is knowing. So words like consciousness, cognition, perception, intuition, words like that, that is order. Okay? The last step here, the 11th category, is orient. Orient is time. But time, that is the reverse, because remember, number is first. This is going to be strange. This happens, though, because the one position reverses itself from the 11th position. Okay, to maximize and minimalize knowledge and what is base. So when we think of time, it's a number sort of thing, right? But it's not. Past, present, and future are the orientation. These are 3 words. There are 11, but I'm giving you 3 to help you understand, to minimize what I'm saying. Past, present, future. Now, past, believe it or not, includes your creation, how you were created. No, not arrogantly on earth in Sheol or hell, as in Jewish mysticism, Sheol. This is hell. This is where we are. This is a place that people choose to be. This is a place that people choose to be for certain reasons. We won't get into that. But the point is that you can know that. And you can know that without doubt and with certainty because of base epistemology. Because of knowledge, of course, and the way to know something logically and know it to be true without doubt. And proof is often the most necessary thing, but when we're doing something logical, proof and logic is not the same in a way that you don't need a physical proof. The physical proofs are less and far between because the physicality is the lowest. So looking to the physical isn't going to give you all the answers because it's never going to be there. It's the physicality. It's the least of knowledge. Therefore, there are representations in the physicality, but there are never exact representations in the physicality because it's physical. That's sort of philosophical, but that help understand. So orient is time without an age, because we are ageless, we are primordial, and that's why I mentioned all of that. Now, I'm going to read the introduction here to a paper that I'm writing on base epistemology. And before I do that, actually, I'm going to explain the last theory. I explained coherence and I explained founderance. I'll explain correspondence. Correspondence is knowledge is somewhere in a structure and all corresponds relative to it, whether it's near or not, but there is a correspondence. Okay? So apple corresponds to fruit and pear corresponds to fruit. Those are correspondence. It's sort of that simple. All these theories hierarchically are accurate. They don't compete in a way that one is going to be right and that'll be the only answer. There's always going to be 11, and we explain that with number theory. Now, I do explain that here, so I'm going to read this first, and then explain why number is used to help us understand how many categories in base epistemology there should be. And now we're going to basically focus just on base epistemology. And I want you to understand, this is very important. Base epistemology, if understood properly and stringently, is the basis of all knowledge. So if you're a scientist, whatever you're doing, if you knew this list and understood the parts of the whole and anything you were doing, you only have to reference the list again to either improve or disimprove something, to create something, to understand something, to know something. You can essentially create the atom in a way through a base list by simply knowing it. That creates it. It will appear eventually. I say eventually just because we're not in a proper environment for that, but there's doubt. So base epistemology is very groundbreaking in a way because it will prove knowledge works a certain way. And it will prove to the person trying to understand something how the knowledge works. So herein is a base list of knowledge. The intent of this list is that a stringent list ought to be the base of all knowledge. To expand on this, I will provide the thesis statement. All knowledge as a whole requires parts and ought to be based upon a maximized short list of knowledge, so that to know something is to know something base listed. Therefore, the list is tacit in the relationship of the perhaps secondary knowledge XYZ. Thus, the structure of knowledge is listed. All knowledge has number. For example, I will now assert that base epistemology is saying that something cannot be known without a number, and thus base means stringent necessity. So base means stringent necessity. That is saying that the structure of knowledge, which is base, is necessary and stringent for all knowledge, because base is singular. Base is that 11th position, the Orient position. Without base, you do not, in the singular position, which is not going to repeat itself in the combinations of 10, it's just going to happen once. That singular position is stringent a necessity. Without that, you do not have knowledge. Now, when creating a list, I have formulated a base list, yet it so happens in such a task that we must know where to begin. How big should the list be? The list is based upon a stringent process. I have listed a number as the first category of knowledge. This is what I'm saying. Number is the first. It's the least of knowledge. The reasoning is that number is the least of knowledge and ought to reveal basic necessity when deciding how many categories there ought to be. There is, in number theory, several suggestions out there. 9, 5, 3, 118 in Buddhism. Numbers like that. But we know, and I'll explain it again, that what are the 10 fingers? We have 10 fingers for a reason. Okay, let's just not go by God's creation from God's design, but rather 10 so happens to be what you need to have a proper physiology and anatomy. 10 works. Okay, 10 was created that way. And we're in these bodies for a reason. So you're not going to have an 11th finger for a reason, but I'll explain that in a second. When you count 1 through 10 and you get to 11, well, what happens? You've used all your fingers. Now you got to use the finger again. It's repetition. We know that we're repeating number, and not only that, we're using everything maximized and then repeating it again. And we're repeating 1 again. We're repeating 11. 11 is simply 1. So what that means is 10 is the maximum number theory, and I use a physical representation for doubt reasons, because physicality is the least of knowledge in the parts. Parts is the being I explained, shadow, self. Physicality is 1. 11 is added to this 10 only because you need to understand that the unknown comes before the known, because before something is created, there has to be a period through which it wasn't created, and therefore an unknown period. And because we are aging and ageless, there is a time where you will be in accordance with the least of the unknown and in accordance with nothingness, because you will begin to be ageless, because you've aged so long over so many lives, let's just say. What also has to happen is number itself has to create number. So it just so happens that all you need is a number that is not a number, that creates number that's unknown, to create number that's known. This is also the same for understanding base epistemology. Base means unknown in that sense. Base epistemology is the unknown structure. It's the 11th. It's the structure through which all the other structures come into play. Founderance is the one position in my understanding. So base is this 11th oriented position, and the least of that is founderance. Now, repetition of, or rather here we should, how many categories, split this way, trick reveal the truth. What are the 10 fingers we have, and why is this epistemic evidence? Counting 11, we certainly repeat 1. Repetition of the 10 numbers proves the lethargic necessity of further number beyond 10. However, the unknown is what comes before the known. Therefore, knowledge emanates from the unknown. As the logic proceeds, a singular number through which the 10 emanates is the revelation when exercising a number theory. We now have, in the simplest of manner, proven a number theory using physical representations and simplified logic. The list. I will just name the list again. Orient, order, organization, part, sensation, ritualism, beliefs or rules, sound, shape, color, and number. That is the 11 categories of base epistemology. Now, basically, this video was intended to, first of all, present my argument of base epistemology, which I, in a probably not so humble way, think is correct, but I could be wrong. However, the intent of the video was to present the argument of base epistemology and to cover epistemology in general as an introduction, so that anybody who watches, or if you're watching now, is going to have an introduction to epistemology and also an introduction to an alternative epistemology, which is base epistemology. Thank you for watching.